What's up, gamer? My name's Waluko, and today I'm going to show you how to unlock all 4 Voidstones for your Atlas in Path of Exile 1. Each Voidstone upgrades the tier of all the maps in each quadrant of your Atlas to the maximum of tier 16, gives your tier 16 map drops a small chance to upgrade into a special kind of map called a Nightmare map, and you'll receive 1 extra bonus that's different for each individual Voidstone. Getting all of your Voidstones is the first step to getting the most out of your Atlas. Each Voidstone unlocks when you defeat different bosses in the Atlas. The Ceremonial Voidstone in the bottom right quadrant comes from defeating a boss named the Maven. You first encounter the Maven when you reach tier 6 or higher maps and find an NPC named the Envoy. He'll do a whole bunch of yapping, but you'll get a quest to kill the boss of whatever map you're in, and then when you kill the boss, it'll drop a quest item called the Maven's Beacon. Interacting with the map device while this item's in your inventory will automatically use that item to add an extra button to your Atlas. This button will allow you to call the Maven into your maps to witness you as you battle the map's bosses. At first, she'll want to witness you fight 3 bosses in tier 6 or higher maps. When she witnesses the 3rd boss, talk to Commander Kirak and select the Maven invitation option in his dialog box. If Kirak isn't already in your hideout, you can talk to him in the Karui Shores, and there should be an option somewhere in his dialog box to invite him to your hideout. When you select the Maven invitation option, a miniature map device will open up. Click the activate button, then go inside the portals that open to the Maven's arena. Click on the stanchion in the middle to start an encounter where you have to fight all of the bosses that the Maven witnessed back to back. After clearing the encounter, click the stanchion in the middle again to get an Atlas Tree skill point. Once that's done, the Maven will want you to repeat that process with more bosses from higher tier maps. The second time, it's 4 bosses from tier 8 or higher maps, then 5 bosses from tier 10 or higher maps. After that, it's 6 bosses from tier 12 or higher maps, and finally 10 bosses from tier 14 or higher maps. Once you complete the 10 boss encounter, you should receive an item called a Crescent Splinter. Collecting 10 of these in the same stack will automatically combine them to form a different item called the Maven's Writ, which acts as an invitation that lets you go fight the Maven herself when you place it in the Absence of Mercy and Empathy slot on the Atlas. Her fight can be pretty difficult, but beating her will drop the Ceremonial Voidstone. Pick it up, open your Atlas, and socket the Voidstone into the slot on the bottom right corner of the Atlas. All of the maps in that quadrant will be upgraded to tier 16, and your maps will immediately receive all of the other bonuses listed on the Voidstone's tooltip. That's the basic process to obtain the Maven's Writ and go fighter, but if you were to do things that way, you would have to complete 10 separate 10 boss Maven encounters to get one singular writ. Even if your build clears maps quickly, that's still 100 maps you have to clear for one attempt at the Maven's fight. Thankfully, there are some slightly faster ways to build up Splinters. The first and simplest way to speed things up is to buy the Splinters or the full Maven's Writ from other players through the in-game currency exchange. This only works if you're not playing in solo self-found, but it's extremely effective, and most of the time the Maven's Writ isn't actually that expensive. If you are playing in solo self-found or you just don't want to trade, you can also hover over the Maven's influence icon on your Atlas screen to see a full list of other endgame bosses that she can witness to unlock certain special invitations. These special invitations are much more challenging than the usual 10 boss encounters, but they require fewer bosses overall, and they tend to drop multiple Splinters per invitation, which greatly speeds up the process of acquiring writs. I'm not going to explain how to do all these special invitations right now because that's a topic for a different video, but if you do want to try any of these for yourself, I would recommend starting with either the Formed, the Twisted, the Forgotten, or the Elder Slayers. These 4 have relatively similar difficulty levels, and they don't usually take too long to complete. The Remembered takes a long time to get through, and the Feared is one of the most difficult encounters in the entire game, so those ones aren't quite as suitable if you're just trying to get some quick Splinters. The Eldritch Voidstone in the bottom left quadrant of the Atlas unlocks when you defeat both the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds. To fight these 2 bosses, you need to complete 2 separate quest lines in the endgame, each named after the boss that you fight at the end. To start these 2 quest lines, push your way up to tier 6 or higher maps, and the Maven will eventually show up in one of your maps at a strange altar thing. Click on the altar and you'll get either a luminous astrolabe or a flesh compass depending on which altar you click on. Opening the map device with either of these items in your inventory will automatically use that item to add some extra buttons to your Atlas screen. Clicking on either of these buttons will add that boss's influence to your map, which will cause extra monsters to spawn, and occasionally some extra altars that provide more difficulty in exchange for more rewards. Continue pushing into higher and higher tier maps, adding influences wherever you can until you reach your first tier 11 map. Killing your first tier 11 map boss with either influence applied will give you a key to go fight a mini boss related to one of the major bosses, depending on which influence you used. The Searing Exarch's mini-boss is named the Black Star, which you can fight by socketing the Polaric Invitation into the Polaric Void on the Atlas, and the Eater of Worlds' mini-boss is named the Infinite Hunger, which you can fight by socketing the Writhing Invitation into the Seething Chime on the Atlas. Killing each mini-boss for the first time will earn you an Atlas Tree skill point from Kirak, and allow you to add the Eldritch boss's influences to higher tier maps. Continue adding influences all the way up to tier 16 maps, and when you kill your first tier 16 map boss with each influence applied, you'll receive an invitation to fight each of the Pinnacle bosses themselves. The Searing Exarch's invitation is called the Incandescent Invitation, and you can fight it by putting that invitation in the Absence of Patience and Wisdom spot on the Atlas, while the Eater of Worlds' invitation is called the Screaming Invitation, and you can fight it by putting the invitation in the Absence of Symmetry and Harmony spot on the Atlas. You'll get another Atlas Tree skill point from Kirak for each one you kill, and when the second one goes down, it should drop the Eldritch Voidstone. Take the Voidstone, open your Atlas, and drop it in the socket on the bottom left to upgrade your maps. The Originator Voidstone in the top left quadrant of the Atlas unlocks when you defeat the final boss in the Threads of the Originator questline, the Incarnation of Dread. This quest starts when you find a spaghetti-looking thing called a Memory Tear in tier 14 or higher maps. An NPC named Egan Kaisarius will show up and let you interact with it. Click on the Memory Tear, then when you leave the map, you should be able to find Egan standing around, somewhere in your hideout with an exclamation mark over his head. When you do find him in your hideout, talk to him, then click on the glowing option in his dialog box to add a glowing line of maps to your Atlas, and open a miniature map device that holds the first map in that glowing trail. Click Activate, then run the map that opens. Beating the boss in this map will progress the memory thread onto the next map in the trail. Talk to Egan in your hideout again, run the next map, and keep doing that until you reach the end of the thread. When you beat the last map boss in the memory thread, you'll be able to talk to Egan in your hideout one more time to fight the final boss of that thread. At the end of the first memory thread, that boss will be called the Incarnation of Neglect. When you beat it, some lore will drop about the Originator, then you can go back to normal mapping until you find another memory tear in tier 14 or higher maps. Repeat the same process as last time until you beat the Incarnation of Fear, then go back to mapping one more time until you find and complete one more memory tear that leads to the Incarnation of Dread. When you beat the Incarnation of Dread, it'll drop the Originator Voidstone, which you can then socket in the top left corner of your Atlas to upgrade your maps. Finally, the Decayed Voidstone in the top right corner of the Atlas comes from defeating two bosses named the Shaper and the Elder. Both bosses have encounters where you fight them individually, but there's also a different encounter known as the Uber Elder where you fight both at the same time. Whether you fight each boss separately or both of them together, the Voidstone will drop when the second boss dies. The Shaper, the Elder, and the Uber Elder encounters all require their own sets of 4 different fragments to enter. The Shaper and the Elder both have their own sets of 4 mini-bosses known as Guardians. The Shaper's Guardians are called the Hydra, the Phoenix, the Chimera, and the Minotaur. They each drop one of the fragments you need to fight the Shaper by himself, and each fragment's name is pretty similar to the name of the Guardian that drops it. The Elder's Guardians are called the Purifier, the Enslaver, the Constrictor, and the Eradicator. They also each drop one of the fragments that you need to fight the Elder by himself, and the fragments' names are also similar to the names of the Guardians that drop them. So, to get into each of these fights, you need to take down all 4 of each boss's Guardians at least once. You can fight the Guardians by finding special kinds of maps which have a small chance to drop from regular map bosses in tier 14 or higher maps. Shaper Guardian maps are simply called Shaper Guardian maps. When you find one, you can place it into any one of these 4 slots on the Atlas to fight whichever Guardian you need. Elder Guardian maps are a little different. When you find one, it'll have the same name as a regular map, but it'll also have a funny icon and an implicit modifier that says map is occupied by something. The name of whatever's occupying the area is the name of the Elder Guardian that you'll have to fight at the end. Elder Guardian maps work just like any other map item and can be used in any of the normal map layouts in the center of the Atlas, so long as the map item is a high enough tier. Just pick a zone, throw the map in, and when you get to the boss, the Elder will replace the normal one with his Guardian instead. It can be a little difficult to complete a full set of Elder fragments because each Elder Guardian map drops with a specific Guardian already inside. To make things easier, you can use Blessed Orbs on your Elder Guardian maps to re-roll which boss is inside and help you find all 4 Elder Guardians without needing them to drop naturally. Once you've collected all 4 fragments for one of the bosses, you can bring them to the map device. If you have all the Shaper fragments, click on the Shaper's Realm here, and if you have all the Elder fragments, click on the Absence of Value and Meaning over here instead. Fighting each boss individually takes a little more time, but it's far easier for most builds to do things that way than completing the Uber Elder encounter. If you're confident in your build and you would rather fight the Uber Elder first anyway, you need a set of 4 different fragments called the Fragments of Knowledge, Terror, Shape, and Emptiness. These fragments only drop from the Shaper and the Elder themselves. The Shaper drops the 2 red fragments on the left, and the Elder drops the 2 gray fragments on the right. That being the case, the only way for you to complete the Uber Elder encounter without fighting the bosses individually first is to trade for the fragments through the in-game currency exchange. First of all, that means you can't use this method if you're playing in solo self-found, and second, that means you'll also need to grind up a bit of currency before attempting the boss. The prices of the fragments can vary pretty wildly depending on what's going on in the league, but you can usually acquire a full set of Uber Elder fragments for somewhere between 250 to 400 chaos. When you have all 4, bring them to the map device, place them in the Shaper's realm in the top right corner, then click activate to fight the bosses. Whatever method you chose, when both bosses have died at least once, the second one will drop you the Decayed Voidstone, which you can then socket into the top right corner of your atlas to upgrade your maps. That should be everything you need to know to get all 4 Voidstones and fully upgrade your atlas. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments or in my chat while I'm live both here and on Twitch. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more like it. Lastly, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.